Hi, I'm Nirupama Subramanian, and you're watching South Asia Matters on Awaaz South Asia. My guest today is P Fabian, a distinguished former member of the Indian Foreign Service, who was India's ambassador to Qatar from 1992 to 1997. And I'm going to discuss with him the death sentence to 8 former Navy officers in Qatar. They were working in Qatar and they were sentenced by a court in Doha. Welcome to South Asia Matters, Mr. Fabian. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Glad to be with you.
Mr. Fabian, my first question to you is, what can India do to bring these men back home alive and safe? And what are the options before India?
Well, first and foremost, we have to get the death sentence revoked. And let me put it this way, we can proceed, with the legal process because Qatar has a good justice system where a higher court can correct if the lower court had given too harsh a sentence. It has happened. Second is diplomatic. At the level of ambassador or special envoys. The third is, of course, seeking pardon, and that is, of course, at the level of His Highness the Emir. And the fourth is, of course, putting pressure on Qatar through other countries and even taking it to the ICJ. But the fourth is something which I wouldn't advise at this moment. I would suggest that we proceed with the first three, but sooner or later, in fact, as early as appropriate, we should start with the third one, that is seeking pardon, even if, the other two processes are not complete, because one might get pardoned during the Ramadan, that is April 2024.
So what would it take for this pardon to happen?
Well, first of all, a formal request has to be made. As you know, the families had made it, but there's a difference between the families making it and that too when the case is on, when the verdict had not been given, and India making it after this verdict has been given.
So and they had filed mercy petitions? The families had filed mercy petitions?
I know, but that is not the same thing.
Yes.
When government of India seeks pardon, that has got much greater, value.
So this has to be at the level of the Prime Minister? The intervention has to come at the level of the Prime Minister?
No, the formal request can be made even at the level of the ambassador. But that may have to be followed up by a special envoy. And I think it will be in our own interest to have a meeting at the summit level, preferably offline, but if not, online.
So does it mean if India seeks a pardon for these men, does it mean admitting to the charges against them?
Let me put it this way. We cannot settle the question of culpability through diplomatic talks. Culpability is determined at the court. And now at a first instance court, it has been determined. Now, if at the higher court, Court of Appeal, if we are able to, sustain our case, well, that is a great thing. So what I'm trying to say, when we ask for a request for pardon, we cannot take the line, because that might imply culpability, we should not ask for pardon. Culpability is something within the court, not at the diplomatic or higher political level.
Right. So this process could take some time, you're saying, and it is likely to come through. Usually it comes through at the time of Ramadan. Is that what you're saying? And
yes, that should be our goal. That is getting the death sentence reversed in April 2024. And then later we will see about the length of the sentence. You know what I mean? It has to be taken step by step. You know what I mean?
Right. So do we know what the charges against these men are? There's been a lot of speculation, but is there any official, would the Qataris have shared it with the government?
Well, let me put it this way. To my mind, there is no need at this moment for Qatar to share it, because As you know, there have been 7 hearings starting from March. I take it that the lawyer appointed by the embassy was present. And I take it that lawyer would have known Arabic because the proceedings are in Arabic. I have been told by a source to be cross-checked that they don't permit you to take a paper or pen or something like that into the courtroom. But whatever that be, even if that were the case, a competent lawyer who knows Arabic would know what the charges are and would have conveyed to the embassy.
Right. But there's been a lot of speculation that they have been they were picked up for espionage on behalf of a third country. What is the truth to these charges? Would you be able to weigh in on that?
Well, I do not have access to classified information, but the general impression is that they were spying for Israel.
Should India be countering this charge at some level? I mean, isn't it a serious charge to make?
No, as I said, its countering has to be done within the court precincts. You know, that sort of charge, once it is made, it is a matter for the judiciary. It is not for the Foreign Office to Foreign Office.
No, I'm asking this because in the Kulbhushan Jadhav case, India came out very strongly and dismissed all charges of espionage against Jadhav. They said it had all been a setup by Pakistan's ISI to defame India. So in this case, what is different? I mean, why is the government so quiet? Why is it silent about about this entire case? Because it's more than a year since the men were picked up, and we haven't heard much from the government in terms of why they were picked up, what the charges are.
Okay. First of all, there is no ISI counterpart in State of Qatar. State of Qatar is keen to strengthen and deepen relations with India, and also has a, young Emir who is very progressive, who is very active. His Highness has no interest in spoiling relations with India. Okay, so let's forget about, the Pakistan angle, And secondly, you said that our government has not been coming out with much information. Well, again, that I can understand because this is too sensitive a matter, and coming out with information can have consequences not desirable. So certain things have to be done, what shall I say, discreetly. Diplomatic discretion is a virtue to be cultivated at times.
Right. So you said that the Emir wants to have good relations with India. How would you describe India's relations with Qatar at this point?
Well, our bilateral economic relations are in good shape. The bilateral trade is about $15 billion, almost 2 billion India's exports, and 13 billion Qatar's exports.
So heavily
Qatar,
weighed in their favor.
Yeah, very, very comfortable trade balance, surplus with India. As you know, it is LNG mainly. India gets 40% of its LNG imports from Qatar, and 15% of Qatar's LNG exports go to India. But not only LNG, we get ethylene, urea, and many other things. Okay, and then 8 lakhs of Indians are there in Qatar, including the families, of course. And Indians are holding high positions, doctors, engineers, managers, and accepted. There is no sort of ill will or anything. The personal relationships between Indians and Qataris, it is something to be admired, to be proud of.
So there have been suggestions that India could use these aspects of the relationship, the Indian market for LNG, the presence of valued Indian professionals in Qatar, as levers to ensure the best outcome for these men who have been sentenced to death. What is your own view on this?
Well, let me put it slightly differently. I agree with the spirit of that approach, but we don't have to point out these things. Once we make a request for the pardon, the Amir's office will look at the big picture. The relations between India and Qatar. They know about it. Our sort of, giving the impression that we want to leverage these relations for a desired end, that may not be diplomatically very smart. So they know it, and we also know that they are also looking at it, at the big picture.
And also, I could cut both ways. I mean, the presence of 800,000 people there, plus our own dependence. I think more than 40% of our LNG imports are from this country alone. So perhaps that is also an argument. I mean, that we are as dependent on Qatar as they are on this trade. I mean, we are a big market, undeniably. I want to move on to the other aspect of this, which is, the situation in the in West Asia is right now very volatile, and Israel has launched its war on Gaza. How is that likely to affect the outcome of efforts by India to bring back these men? Could that have a bearing, because Qatar is playing a big role in mediating between Israel and Hamas. Hamas, in fact, the top leadership of the Hamas, they have their families in Qatar. So Qatar is quite friendly to Hamas. So our differing positions, India's differing positions from Qatar on this, could that have a bearing on the outcome of this particular matter?
Thank you. First of all, I wouldn't call it just a war. What Israel is committing is genocide. And anyone who can read the text of the 1948 Convention for preventing and punishing genocide can understand the rest of it. But that apart, I do not believe that the divergent positions India and Qatar have taken as regards what is going on between Israel and Palestine, I don't think that will come in the way. I have come across, some media reports saying that, Qatar did this because of that difference of opinion. But I think that doesn't hold water, because, as you know, this matter started in August 2022. Okay? So there is no cause and effect relationship. In fact, we should stop looking for shallow explanations. I'm sorry to say that I see that trend getting stronger and stronger.
And by shallow explanations, you mean trying to find a cause for this kind of verdict for the men being picked up?
Let me give you the best example. President Biden saying that the Hamas did it at this time because they were worried about India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor. It did not make any sense at all. But our people have repeated it. So I'm sorry to say, we Indians have to think for ourselves rather than, be led by the West.
So you're saying this will not have a bearing on the outcome of the case?
Certainly.
But I will take you up on the other thing you mentioned, which is that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. Would you say that it has adequate cause for launching operations in Gaza because of what Hamas did on October 7th by launching that all-out attack on Israeli settlements on the border, taking hostages, killing civilians? Is that adequate cause for what Israel has done now or is doing now?
Certainly not. Let me put it this way. On the 7th of October, Hamas carried out atrocious acts. In fact, I would even call them terrorist acts. No doubt about it. But that was for one day. What Israel is doing, how many days now? We can calculate. How many have been killed? You can calculate. How many might have died because of lack of food, lack of medical attention? You can calculate. And you see, the Genocide Convention was there partly because of the Holocaust. And Israel is now committing Holocaust in a slightly different form. And that is very painful. That is very, what shall I say, unimaginable. And that the West is supporting it. And, well, India found it difficult to support a resolution at the UN General Assembly asking for a humanitarian ceasefire. Well, you can call it pause, you can call it ceasefire. That's not the point. Point is, there should be an immediate end to what Israel is doing. That is killing women, children, bombing hospitals, schools, asking people to move from the north to the south and bombing them and killing them when they are in the south or going there. So genocide is a correct description for what Israel is doing.
So don't you agree that India's position abstaining from that vote in the UN General Assembly on that resolution asking for a humanitarian pause is correct, because the resolution made no mention of the Hamas attack, and India's position has been from day one that it condemns the Hamas attack. So don't you agree that India was justified in abstaining?
I do not. Let me put it this way. Condemnation of the Hamas attacks, I am also for it. But if you stop there, if you're unable to look at the big picture, if you forget about occupation by Israel going back to 1948-49, and especially since 1967, and if you forget that Gaza is the worst open-air prison in the world under the moon, and if you forget that Hamas had no other way perhaps of drawing attention to their plight, okay? So we have to understand, it's not enough to condemn. And also, if you kindly go through the speech made by our Deputy Permanent Representative, well, the way she put it, she contradicted her conclusion, because she explained that India is for, for supplies to come, for humanitarian supplies to go and all that. So India, so our position was not only untenable, but also self-contradictory.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Fabian. Thanks a lot for your views on both the fate of the men in Qatar and on the Israel-Palestine issue. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Nirupama. All the best to you in Chennai.
Thank you. Thank you.